Greetings, ladies. Welcome to Homemaking Radio. I'm so honored that you chose to listen today, and I hope that it entertains you while you get something done at home. And I'm Mrs. Sherman. I grew up with the name Lydia Ruth. Later on in school, it was changed to Lydia. A lot of people with double names had it changed by the teachers, just I guess to make it easier. And I missed having it, so I'm trying to use it a little bit more. And my children all have double names too. But we homeschooled our children, so they got to keep their names. And so today I want to talk about a little bit more of some of the things I covered last time. And first of all, I have three areas I like to cover, and one is getting ready, your preparation, getting ready for the day, no matter what kind of turmoil you're in. I think that if you'll take care of your appearance first, it gives you a start, a professional feeling to start, and things can be just falling around you like it's a hoarder's place. And somehow, when you're dressed up and you have an apron on and a pen and a pencil, a pen and a notebook in your pocket, and you're all prepared, that you can get a few things done and feel good about it and feel good about yourself. And I think it's really good with the homemaking aspect to, after you've cleaned up an area, and I always like to start at the front door because that's probably where people will come in first, my family, and it cheers them up, encourages them so much to have that front room at least respectable, even if they can see beyond that and there's piles of stuff everywhere. We're a very active family. We're creative. I've just finished having a summer camp in my home and outside, and so I gave everyone a vacation here, and I'm now doing some tidying up. But I think it encourages people, first of all, if you're dressed up and you have your hair fixed and you look like you are working at some great place, encourages them, but also you do act a little more efficient in your work. I don't know, everybody's different. This is just for your entertainment. Don't take it too seriously. And I have some notes left over from last time and about some of the things that I had mentioned. And someone told me about keeping a journal, and she told me, I was telling you about this woman I knew that had had a big disaster in her life, in her personal life, and she went into kind of a slump, and she said one day, and this was before you could get help for any of your, panic attacks and anxiety, and she said she knew she was going to have to bring herself out of this, so she decided to do a number of things, and she made a big list of things to do that only took a half a minute or a minute, and they were just real simple things, and she tried to get through them, and somehow it balanced her mind, and she was able to function, and she knew that life had to go on. That was an old saying, when we were growing up. We could face just about anything because, quote, life has to go on. And you didn't let yourself get into too much of a funk over things that today people would have a meltdown over. But I'm not talking about really serious things. I'm just talking about the normal stresses of daily life. And she had a list of things that she had to do, and they were just tiny little things. But she'd make a list, put a little box around it, next to it, that she could check off, and it made her, somehow balanced her and gave her some rhythm in life. And one of them was to water a plant. All she had was a plant. She'd water it. Even if she had a dish or two in the sink, she'd wash that and put it away. And she had went for a little walk. She sat in her rocking chair. She read something. She drank a cup of tea. She drew a picture. And they were just little normal things that I think sometimes we have been taught in childhood to do that we have taken away from us. She was careful about how she put away her clothes at night and laid out the ones for the next day. And a lot of this is covered in what they call Fly Lady, which used to be Sidetracked Home Executives, is one of the things they taught for these homemakers that were getting overwhelmed and sidetracked and not able to complete jobs, was to get your clothes ready for the next day. Start your day, put a clean towel out in your kitchen the night before. keep your dishes washed, things like that. And so she started doing these little things, and she came up out of her slump, and she began to have a new zest for life. And so this was before the days when you could get all kinds of advice and help, and people used to have to help themselves. I found it interesting to talk to this woman, and nowadays she had a journal, and she'd write what she did in that journal. I have had trouble with journals and diaries. I've never liked them because I always thought they meant you recorded your life of what happened that day, and that was what the journaling was all about. And of course, I never liked going back and reading it because I could see my failures. And she told me about this gratefulness journal, which every day she would write down one good thing, one thing that she liked. And so journaling doesn't have to be a record of your life. It can be something that you like. And so I also wanted to mention how important it is in homemaking to keep your routine, your own personal routine. You're always going to have a huge amount of housework to do: laundry, dishes, cleaning the bathroom, doing your groceries. It's a hard life, and no one should get away with telling you that you have an easy life. It's not easy, and it's important to have your own routine because these things will fall apart. So when I had the larger amount of people in my house, and they were staying for quite a while, and we had our summer camp, I had a little routine for myself before I even faced any of them. I would either go outside or stay in my private area and had my routine. I had my prayers. I had my little stretch exercises. I had my cup of tea. I had my list that I made. I'd read something. And I listened to some music, or I'd go for a walk. And I did all this because you have to, otherwise you'll find your head swimming or your brain feeling tight. So you have to do these things for yourself and keep a kind of routine. And I learned that by watching my husband's aunt in Kansas. We would go see her, and she was getting quite elderly. But she wasn't quite available early in the morning, but she was out watering her plants, or she just was taking care of herself. She'd spend some time in the bathroom, and then during the day, she'd just disappear. Well, they said she always goes and lays down at a certain time, so she just went and took a nap. And she didn't announce it. She didn't say, well, goodbye, I'm going to be taking a nap. She just simply went and did it. And so you have to keep some kind of personal routine. Get yourself together, get your appearance ready, take your bath, shower, and take care of yourself, just so the tension doesn't come. And you've got to do it every day, no matter how late it is in the morning. Sometimes we can feel pressure and rushed, but you have to tell yourself, I can't be pressured. I have to think, because we have to think about what we're doing at home. If you don't think about what you're doing and you just rush through it like it's some mechanical job, it loses its meaning and its beauty, and it just becomes very materialistic. It's not spiritual like it should be. So this is what I did. I practiced. I was like Mary Kay. Remember in her book, Mary Kay wrote that her family never saw her until she had been in her bathroom and in her bedroom. She didn't come out until she was fully dressed and she was good and ready to come out. So I had a little routine. I read something, and I'd answer my email and maybe write a letter. I did all those things before I saw anyone. I did my certain stretches, and I walked outside for a while in the sunrise. And the sunrise is supposed to be better for you than the sunset, just as you can see it coming over the horizon. And it resets your body, and it's supposed to be incredibly good for you. So I've been going out in the sunrise, and if I can't go out, I'll open a window on the east and wherever it's coming and experience some of it. Then it feels really good. So keep some sort of personal routine when people are there. because you'll just feel like you want to. You'll just feel like you're sick and you'll need to recover after they leave. But you don't have to do that. You can be in relaxed mode the whole time. And it's also good, I think, to keep some semblance of order. I tried to keep the kitchen clean and the bathroom clean and the laundry caught up. Other things, not so much. I didn't watch, the clutter quite so much but I do believe that sloppy living can lead to sloppy thinking. And when it got too cluttered and I was feeling pressured, that's when I started to clean it up, and then my mind would settle down. Other things I talk about here besides housekeeping is I talk about people. Everybody likes this part, and I wanted to mention something that I learned recently. Everyone, I think we're in an era where people can be quite critical and argumentative, and you get around some people that want to contradict everything you say, and you start to look around. I've seen this phenomenon. You start looking around on the web for how to deal with difficult people, and you start looking at all the videos on how to answer a critic, or how to outwit someone who's trying to dominate you or something like that. And I used to watch all these things and thought it was real interesting, but it also gives you more to do, to outthink these people. And I ran across this guy a couple years ago that just put an end to it all. In fact, it put an end to his whole video channel because he didn't need to do any more after he did this one. I don't know who he was, but he said, you shouldn't even try to deal with people like that because you are playing their game. And then you have to remember all the tactics that you use to outwit them, to get them to be quiet, to etc. He says you just shut them down, you don't say anything to them, you don't answer them, and you just go on with your life. And I just thought that was quite clever. However, I think some people, if they have that situation in their families or in their church, have to be a little more diplomatic. But still, don't waste too much time thinking of techniques on how to outwit these people. Just leave them, let them be. Leave them alone. Walk away from them. I think the Bible does teach that too. And be extremely busy. I love carrying a notepad around, or reaching in my purse and looking at my notepad in front of people who tend to be, who want to waste my time or whatever. I'll look at my notepad and say, well, I can't fit that in, or that's not part of what I'm going to talk with anyone about today. And I thought, it's easy to say, that's not one of my favorite subjects, And so we want to also at home relax at home and have this book, Fascinating Womanhood, somewhere in Fascinating Womanhood, she had written, and I couldn't find it, but she had written that a woman needs to learn to relax at home. And so consequently, if you don't allow home life to become so hectic, and you learn to relax and have time for relaxation, and caring for yourself and renewing yourself, that you won't feel anxious and you won't have to leave home to get away from the stress. What you want to do is create a relaxing time for yourself and a relaxing atmosphere for yourself. And so today I'm going to talk a little bit also about, and everything, when she wrote that, she mentioned that a woman just needs to learn to relax even while she's working. And that's the way my children were raised, is that our whole life was just an enjoyment. Let's just enjoy it. Let's enjoy everything that we have to do. And we always had compensation and treats for ourselves. We had our afternoon tea. We had our reading. We had playing. We had our movies we liked to watch. And we made life not miserable for each other. And we always had compensation for everything that was stressful. And I think that's the way we need to do with our homes. And in Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell, which was written after the Regency time, which was after Jane Austen, they still had a semblance of this concept that Brian Kozlowski had written about in the Jane Austen diet. He had written that the Austenites, not the Austenites, but the people of the Regency era, knew when to retreat and be quiet and have quiet time for themselves. And he said often in the books you would see a scene described as one of them walking alone and maybe talking to themselves or even looking frustrated. But they knew when it was time to go get off on their own and recover their thoughts. And then they knew when they needed to see someone or to talk to someone or make a call. They kind of knew this balance in life. And I recalled a time in Wives and Daughters. This is a publication I got from Wordsworth Editions. I'd love to have the hardback in this if anyone wants to send it to me if you don't want it anymore. I'm collecting hardbacks now, nice books that have hardbacks on them. And he had a section in here. They had a section in here which you can see in the movie. They did it quite well. And that was his Dr. Gibson's daughter, Molly, who was 17, was asked to come and look after the Hamley family because the mother had been sick, and there were other incidences where there was illness in the home. And one time her father said, "I need to have my daughter back home for a while. It's been born of me lately that she's been under a lot of burdens and stress, and she needs to come home." And so they knew, too. They still had a semblance of that, where they knew when it was time to quit helping others and come and recover and regroup. And I think that's really important, too. And homemakers are often pressed upon to help others because, after all, we're at home and we can be asked to do any number of things. Sadly, a lot of women don't know how to say, "Look, I've got my own family to look after, and I can't go and do all these things for you." And I've been asked to do everything from picking up people's prescriptions because they can't get out or they're at work, to taking their children to appointments. And I can understand how you could do that if you were a widow and you wanted it as a ministry. I've known people that have done that and loved it, loved to go do things for other people. But if you're at home and you're a homemaker, your home is your major ministry. And the way that it is organized and the way that it functions, the way that you make it function for you and your family to function, is an important ministry. There isn't anything better, and there's no use trying to go out and win the world if you can't manage your own home. So we can learn to manage it. And there are many places, you can, these days there's no excuse. You can get on the web, you can find on YouTube many videos on how to clean your house, how to clean something, how to take care of a room or clean a room. You can find many videos on how to cook. As a matter of fact, this winter I am going to learn how to be a chef because I want to one last effort in my life. Now that I'm vital, I want to do something really high end, and I want to learn how to be a chef. So I'm finding some free lessons on how to be a chef and make my food taste better. And of course, as you become more vital, you want things to have more flavor and more taste and be more natural. So I'm looking forward to that. But there's no excuse. You can learn to do anything. You can learn to write a book. You can learn to sew. You can learn to do many, many different things online now, and they're free. And you can even paint. I took a painting course one time. And so really, there are many things that you can do at home to embellish your home, and embellish your own personality and help. You can even learn to sing. I don't know if you can learn to play an instrument or not online. Some people have, but I wanted to read a little bit from Brian Kozlowski's Health and Happiness. Health and Happiness. Remember Mr. Mr. Darcy had said, "May I express my best wishes for your health and happiness?" And they weren't so much full of the hello and goodbye stuff as they had these nice little greetings and farewell phrases that you see in the New Testament, where they would say, "Grace be unto you," and "peace," uh, or something like that. And that has changed now, but I really liked that health and happiness. My best wishes. Please express to your parents my best wishes for their health and happiness. That is not a meaningless phrase, and we have lost the art of small talk and greetings that open up and prepare the social palate for deeper conversation. It's like having a salad before you eat the meat, and we've lost that art. But reading the Jane Austen books, and especially this one, the Jane Austen Diet, can help. So I'm going to read a little bit to you while you work for about the health and happiness section that he has. And I'll read as long as my voice lasts. This might be a shorter video. He says, think of health and happiness as a sort of pilgrimage, an enlightening climb up the Regency equivalent of a monastery. Inside, Jane Austen might not look like your typical Zen master, the requisite cup of green tea being the only earthly connection, but the woman is pretty good at bending mind over matter. According to Jane, all of us have the power to think, feel, and will ourselves to better health. Some of the most far-out medical mysteries science has only started deciphering. And anytime you're not feeling well, it's interesting. If you're interested in natural health, you can look up the symptom, and find out what natural things you have that are harmless, not allopathic, not chemicals, but what natural things you have right at hand that you could use, including just intermittent fasting, drinking more water, drinking tea, resting, that can alleviate some of our physical problems, and or doing without sugar, being careful to eat only things that are natural, etc., that are harmless, and you can research your own health. According to Jane, all of us have the power to think, feel, and will ourselves to better health. And Austen has been tapping into the power of the mind for over 3 centuries. In novels that promote the medicinal magic of happiness. So this little section is called Health and Happiness, and the name of the paragraph is Health and Happiness. And I love that, because if you look up the word happy in the Psalms or any of the epistles or anything, it's a very interesting word. It's, in some respects, it's the same as blessed is happy. Happy is the man who, etc., gets wisdom and understanding. So happiness, he says here, in the Austen world, had a lot to do with health. And he had written in one of the ones I'd written to you that all it took was a smile sometimes to change some of the tension in your body, or to change your health. In novels that she promotes, the medicinal magic of happiness warn us of the biological damage of stress. And I've been talking a lot about anxiety and stress. And remind us that the mind and body always function alike. You can see that all through the Psalms and the Proverbs, where it talks about how certain mental and emotional things are health to the body and health to the bones. And it's things like understanding and honor and goodness and the practice of virtue. It says it's health. And if you look up the word health in the scriptures you'll find that. I believe in a true analogy between our bodily frames and our mental health, she said. These are some of the last published words Austen wrote, and they prop up her entire health philosophy. I believe also in Wives and Daughters, if Brian Kozlowski would like to write a similar book about lifestyle, he would find it in here too, because Mr. Gibson said, meanwhile, it's pressed upon me that I need to have my daughter at home. She needs some rest from the caregiving that she's been doing here at the Hamley House. They sensed what a certain time was right. Even when I was growing up, my parents knew that too much socialization was bad for us. And while we would ask, to attend things, they would know when it was enough for us. They were wise about that. They knew that it wasn't too good to be always socializing. And one of the reasons I like this is because he says that the people of that era knew when they needed to socialize, and they knew when they'd had enough. As integral as food or exercise, thoughts and feelings were potent things to Jane. That's why in the scriptures the Bible talks so much about schooling your thoughts and disciplining yourself and being self-controlled, because your thoughts have to be in line with God's will, not just your actions. And how many times have people grown up when we thought they were, headed in one direction, but really their thoughts were controlling a different direction. And on the outside they appeared to be doing very well, but inside they had rebellious thoughts. As integral as food or exercise, thoughts and feelings were potent things to Jane, healing or harming our bodies depending on how carefully we manage our minds. Yes, it is possible to manage our minds. I remember when I first began homeschooling back in the early 1980s, how I was reading something in a homeschool magazine about how important we thought it was for children to learn to read and write. And everyone was really big on that. But this one author said, it is important, but it's also important to teach them what to read and what to write. And yet you would hear people say in the old days, well, I like to read. I read anything I can get my hands on. No, we don't want to do that. We don't want to sully your mind by reading anything you can get your hands on. You want to read good, wholesome things and things that are benefit to build the mind and to edify. Edify means to build up and to enrich the mind and improve the mind. And you have to be discerning, which means being able to judge between what's valuable and what's not. So that's why with homeschooling, we were careful not to always accept something as a classic and say our kids must learn to read this, because it might not be wholesome either. It might not have good messages in it. I know many of us that grew up in public school were horrified at some of the things we had to read, and we wanted that change with our children so that they could have a happy, carefree childhood, not sullied by some of the fear and the horrible things that we were taught that has done much harm. I must take care of my mind, says Fanny in Mansfield Park. Everyone loved Fanny in Mansfield Park. By the way, I don't have a set of the Austen novels because I'm waiting to find a good set. We had some that we got at the dollar store many years ago, and I believe my daughter took them home with her. That's the thing, you don't really plan on your kids leaving home and you've got one set of everything. What I think people should do is buy two sets, one for your children and one for you. Every life in Austen world literally hinges on it taking care of your mind. He's observed this in these books. How accurately that applies to our own stories will soon be explored, so hold on to your wispy straw bonnets. We're about to get strange, wild, and metaphysical with Jane. Glowing and lovely in happiness. That's the subtitle of this next section here. Embracing the patriotic spirit of Regency England. England and France were at war for most of Austen's lifetime. Now let me see. This was she was born around the time of the American Revolution, around 1776 or 1778. So that would be the Regency period. And the Victorian period, I believe, began in 1903 when Queen Victoria was born. So it was quite a distance there. Let's begin our mind-body lessons by doing the historically respectable thing, blaming the French. Remember, even in Wives and Daughters, Mr. Hamley made a rude remark about the French, and his son secretly married a French woman, so it was quite difficult for him. And so he goes on to explain that the French, there was a French philosopher who didn't believe that the emotions and the body were connected. It was all disconnected. But Austen believed that what you thought would affect your body. And you think of something fearful, don't you feel the tightness in your chest? Don't you feel the tension in your back when you maybe think of something that's unpleasant or fearful? And when you think of something joyous, don't you feel different from that? So it is connected. Austen never knew how to separate the two, the mind or the body, living in an age when the mind and body were still intimately linked. Here's a quote. There is nothing of which the physician is more frequently aware than the power of the mind. That's interesting, isn't it? People had been connecting the mind-body dots since and before. Mens sana in corpore sana means a sound mind in a sound body. And Mr. Collins, remember Mr. Collins, the fictional Mr. Collins, the minister in Pride and Prejudice, he said, "As for my fair cousins, I shall now take the liberty of wishing them health and happiness." So many nice greetings in that story, and also in I like the 1996 or 1995 edition of Pride and Prejudice with Jennifer L. And because it was quite accurate in these sayings. This minister repeats the sentence twice, as does Darcy. "Accept my best wishes for your health and happiness." It soon becomes very clear that we can't have one without the other in Austen world. I'd like to adopt that into my language too. And when some of them stayed a little bit longer and some of them left, but they all got in their vehicle. And there was a scene in Wives and Daughters where Lady Harriet was taking Molly around for a carriage ride to kind of resurrect her reputation and show that she was being approved of by the upper class. Lady Harriet, after some gossip had gone on around her, she took her around to help her get back into good graces of the community. And we noticed that in one of the coaches she was in, just before she got ready to leave, a butler brought her a tray with a drink on it, and she sipped the drink and put the cup back on the tray. And so we always liked watching that. It was just so luxurious. So I brought a tray with tea on it for them as they were leaving, and delivered it at the window before they left. And they got quite a kick out of that. I didn't take a picture, unfortunately, but they just thought it was the neatest thing. I just wanted to do that. And so for today, ladies, because my voice is kind of used up, because of all the commotion around here, and it's getting a little bit darker outside, But I did want to leave you something to listen to. So maybe for half an hour you could clean out a box, a drawer, fix your, tidy up your living room area. I personally will put in Pride and Prejudice and probably listen to that while I work. And I have a lot of other interests also. I hope that you do well, and that you'll pray that God will give you success in your home and in your family. Where we're hurting the most is not, you hear this all over that, your country is having problems and everything, but really, on your own side of the street, you can take care of your family. That is the most important thing, and instill good values in everyone, and practice good values in your home and in your home keeping. And if you don't think that you're very wise or smart, at least keep your house nice. That says a lot. That says volumes. It shows character quality, and it shows the character quality of diligence, and it shows the character quality of being a good steward of what you have, and it shows the character quality of thrift, because if you take care of things, they don't break down, you don't have to get new things. And so if that's all you can do, if all you can do is, do some of the things that you have talents for, then do that, because those things help develop stability and character in your own people. And we can't do anything about what the news media says or what the rest of the world says. We can't hoist up our own nation by ourselves. We can put all of our effort into our families, into our children, and into our grandchildren, and help them to do right. And they are what, adding up together, make a country. But just control what's on your side, what's on your plate, and don't try to save the world. A lot of things can be solved just by raising up a good family, and we see that in the scriptures, where the ones that are quiet and quietly go about their own business often accomplish a great deal for the good of everyone. And so, ladies, before I leave, I will say I pray for every one of you. I know there's not many of you that come here. It's fine with me. And I pray you'll all be blessed in your home. If I owe you a letter, I know it's there. I will be answering. I'll answer your emails. And I'm just a little bit slow trying to catch up with everything. And I love you all. Stay close to Christ. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.